Good morning. Hi, Mark Herbert, the CEO and founder of Warp Films, co-founder. It was good actually, because when they said the subject was Kismet, I thought that was a good one for Warp, because certainly for the first 10 years, we've been going nearly 20 years now, for the first 10 years I think I did write 3 business plans, which went straight in a drawer and were kind of ignored. They were really just to get funding. Because I think in a lot of the creative industries, it's about contacts, it's about opportunities, it's about seizing the moment. So I thought I'd start, I'm going to open up to questions, but I thought I'd just start with a kind of little bit of a brief history to show kind of what I mean about Kismet and connections, because if you look at our first, in terms of a lot of creative businesses, I think the toughest time is the first 2 to 3 years. And really, it was about trusting my instincts, I guess, really, and just following whatever I felt was aligned. And if you see this first bit of history with some photographs, you'll see why. So, to give you a little bit of history, Warp Records, amazing Sheffield company, founded by Rob Mitchell and Steve Beckett, shop up on Division Street. The reason I knew them is we all used to live in Nether Edge. Our backyards faced each other, and we all played football for the Washington in town. Sunday league football, pretty shit. And that's how I knew them, really. And we used to, like crazy bunch of people, from sort of musicians to creative people and drug dealers and police people, all in the 11-a-side football team. And I was a location manager, production manager, worked my way up through the crew from sort of like mid-90s when I graduated from Hallam. And Rob had this amazing idea because they just had some success with the Chris Cunningham videos for Aphex Twin, were huge. They'd done some soundtracks for Lynn Ramsey, they had the connections with film. So Rob had this idea of setting up a film company. He raised some money from Nesta, wrote this amazing business plan, and basically I helped him with the business plan because he didn't know film. I was working in film, and we used to go around and play PlayStation together. I mean, that was it, and I'd just help him with this amazing business plan. And then I got to produce. I moved into producing when my daughter was born in '99 because I didn't want to be away all the time as much as a location manager. And then I produced, the first thing I produced was a thing called Phoenix Nights, Peter Kay's Phoenix Nights, which I was just worked on my own. Was a producer for hire, worked for another company in Channel 4. And Rob did his business plan, raised some money, and then tragically Rob got diagnosed with liver cancer and raised this money, and 3 months later he'd passed away. And I'd just done Phoenix Nights 1, it was a huge success, massive. They'd offered me to do Phoenix Nights 2. And during Rob's wake, Steve, his business partner, was thinking of giving up this amazing business plan Rob had created, because he'd lost his business partner and he had a massive record company to run that had just moved down to London from Sheffield. So a bottle of Jack Daniels later, and I am literally talking, in my kitchen in Nether Edge on Empire Road, I said, I'm going to turn Phoenix Nights 2 down. I'll come and take the mantle for Rob, because I helped him with the business plan. But I want to be part of the company. I want to have ownership. I'll do it. I'm turning down a lot of money. And it was crazy. At that time, it was the most money I'd ever earned. It was a year's contract, and I basically turned it down for about 1/10 of the money, just because I believed in this thing, and I was pissed. Anyway, woke up the next day thinking, what the hell have I done? Let Peter Kay know, which didn't go down very well, and then we started off this mad journey on Warp Films. Rob had already raised a couple of $100,000 to make 3 short films and a business plan. And one was the Chris Cunningham short, Rubber Johnny. And then they had this contact with Chris Morris, Brass Eye Chris Morris, the amazing satirist. And he wanted to make a short film. But they didn't know. So I went to Chris, said, Chris, come on, I'm going to produce this short for you. I've produced some stuff before. And he wrote this amazing script. It was only 12 minutes. And it was called My Wrongs. We made it in 2002, and that's Paddy Considine there, the actor. If you look at where the bus is going, I always love that little joke that not a lot of people pick up on at the back. Crazy little short film, which won a BAFTA, actually. And it just set us off on this trajectory. So we had this business plan, and we made this short film that Paddy was in. I got this amazing DOP called Danny Cohen, who used to live in Nether Edgeworth. He's an incredible DOP. He worked on it, an amazing editor worked on it, and we just made this crazy short film, and it won a BAFTA. And then Paddy was best mates, one of his best mates was Shane Meadows. They made a film called A Room for Romeo Brass, which is brilliant, one of my favourite British films of all time. And Paddy said to me, and we had this, like I say, we had this crazy business. We were going to do a Chris Cunningham film, we were going to do a Lynn Ramsey film, and that was in the business plan. But Paddy said, Shane's done 4 features now. He's worked with London-based producers. None of them really there's a class issue, because a lot of the producers, even back then, a lot of them now are really sort of from quite privileged, posh backgrounds. And he doesn't get on with them, because he grew up in a council estate in Uttoxeter. I grew up in Conisbury, a little mining town about 10 miles from here. And so he just sort of said, I think you'll get on with Shane. So he said, would you mind meeting him? So he set me and Shane up to meet, and this is after Shane had just made a film called Once Upon a Time in the Midlands that was that went to Cannes, was a big, what perceived a success, but Shane wasn't happy with the way it had gone. He felt like they'd taken his process away. And what Warp was doing, we had a very bespoke way of producing. We didn't have an in-house style. We would tailor our producing methods depending on the director and talent we were working with. So a Chris Morris shoot is very different to the Shane Meadows shoot, is different to a Richard Awardi. Anyway, Paddy introduced me to Shane. I met him in a pub. It's kind of where a lot of my journey starts. And we met in a pub, had a pint with him, got on really well. This was in February in 2001. 2002. And he sort of said to me, I really don't like all this money. I like to work without a script. I like to improvise. I said, yeah, we can do that. So I said, let's make a short film together. So the week later, I went over to his house, saw these short films that him and Paddy made on their own with no money, just a camera. And I literally mean a camera, and they had a box of props, which was a wigs and teeth and crazy thing. And they made these shorts, which were made for nobody gave them permission to make them. It was like for them, it was like a sketchbook. And I saw these shorts, and I was like, oh God, they're really incredible. Why don't you do that method of filmmaking, instinctive, but on a feature film? And he said, well, because nobody will trust me to do it. So me being crazy, I said, well, look, and he said, and by the way, bit of detail, Paddy had his ascendancy had gone from, he'd won awards, he'd just done a My Summer of Love, Romeo Brass, he'd been in America, this Jim Sheridan film, which was pretty huge, broke him in America. And so he said, I want to do a film with Paddy in the lead. I don't know what it is. So we went to Paddy. This is in March. And Paddy said, I'm available in May. 2 months away. Which was like, he said, I've got a month before I go over to do this film in Toronto. So we said, right, that's crazy. Okay, give us a week. Let's see what money we can raise. And on a Shane Meadows, Paddy Considine film, I'll produce it. Thinking we'd get about 200 grand. They came up with this crazy sort of superhero idea. Anyhow, what happened was Dead Man's Shoes. So, I don't know if anyone's seen Dead Man's Shoes, if anyone's seen that film. The first film we made, Shane Meadows directed, Paddy. So within 2 months, and this is crazy for film, because the last 2 films I've made have taken 5 years from getting the IP, the property, whether it was a musical or a book, or a theatre piece in ghost stories. They normally take about 5 years to get to. This was like February, meet Shane, March, say let's do a film together, May, day after my birthday, 7th of May, we're on set filming Dead Man's Shoes. 3-week shoot. And it was all just from this connection with Paddy. Paddy kind of connected me to Shane, thought, oh, you get on, you're kind of the same age, you're into the same kind of stuff, you're both a bit rough around the edges. So anyway, so that was Dead Man's Shoes. So that's us on Dead Man's Shoes. That's the scene, yeah. That's in fact, and this is coming back. We didn't have any much. Even though we had 800 grand, which sounds a lot of money, but we shot on film. It wasn't too much. We shot it in Matlock. The reason we went to Matlock, people think, why do you go to Matlock? It's an amazing visual. The reason we went to Matlock is my best man, George, worked for the council doing up council houses that were left in a bit of a shithole state. So he did them up between tenants. We thought, I'm not going to get any money, we need the locations for these drug dealer dens. So we went to Matlock because my mate could get us into these houses for nothing. And that's seriously genuine. We had, I don't know if you've seen film crews, you might have seen them around. You might have seen Jamie, I think there was 250 of us. On Dead Man's Shoes we decided, and I'd sort of seen how much money is wasted on certain films. You need it on a musical, you need hundreds of people in costume. But on Dead Man's Shoes we had a crew of 12. The reason it was a crew of 12 is that we had a minibus and that's how many people we could fit in the thing. That was my plan. Somebody with a camera, somebody with a boom. We had art department, one person in the art department. We used all on location, we had one lighting person. And that was basically available lights. So we just went and made sure that lights were working and stuff. All available lights. So that was it. We shot it in 3 weeks. That's us on set with, that's a waxwork body of one of the actors that was in the thing. The guys who made that, I think he's called Tim. They were based down at the Wicker. They did visual effects, just set up. And then, so we made this film, Dead Man's Shoes, thinking, yeah, it's a bit, you know, bit of a dark, quite art house. It didn't do massive at the box office because at the same weekend Saw, the first Saw film was released, and Layer Cake, which kind of took a bit, but it became a huge cult success. Like, it got great reviews, it got nominated for a BAFTA, won a lot of awards, went to a lot of film festivals, but didn't actually do that well, but then became a word of mouth hit. The DVD was huge. Massive. This is when people bought a lot of DVDs. So again, business plan in the drawer, which was doing a film with Chris Cunningham, because everyone wanted to work with him. He was like mega talent. But I'm sort of suddenly on this sort of slightly different journey and trajectory, just working with Shane and Paddy. And then we made Dead Man's Shoes, and a year later, Shane said, I'll work with you again. He'd never worked with the producer twice. We got on really well. So he said, I've got this mad idea. I've got another mad idea about my childhood. I said, I want to do a similar process to Dead Man's Shoes, but we need a bit more crew because Dead Man's Shoes was contemporary. If you ever watched Dead Man's Shoes, they never changed clothes. That's why I had one person in the costume department and one in makeup, because it takes place over a week. I've got the same clothes I had on yesterday, that kind of vibe. So I thought, so we kind of made the aesthetic of the film and the way we made the film kind of drove it. And if you watch Dead Man's Shoes, it's either handheld, so Danny with it on his shoulder, or it's on a tripod. They're the only two things that you have in that. No track, nothing else, no gimmicks, just handheld or tripod, which meant we could reduce the crew. Came to make This Is England, and Shane, again, and this has just come out of like Shane going, I had this crazy childhood with these skinheads. It was an amazing time, pre-internet, pre-mobile phone. He told me the story of his childhood because it's based on him. So Sean, the character that Thomas Sturgis plays, is based on him. The whole story is loosely based on his life. And I went to Cannes without a script, just with a soundtrack of cool sort of Trojan music. Some amazing skinhead photographs. Some amazing photographs, and 2-page synopsis that Shane had written. But we needed a little bit more money because it was set in the 80s. So we needed an art department, we needed costume, we needed makeup, we needed. Shane wanted to use more tools, if you like. It was more characters than Dead Man's Shoes. So did a budget, it cost £2.5 million, it was budgeted at £2.5 million. Went to Cannes, raised the money, we made This Is England, thinking, small film, there's nobody, Stephen Graham was in it, but Stephen Graham at that time, he was actually going to give up acting. Vicky McClure, who played Lol, was stocking shelves, and she actually took time out. Joe Gilgun, who played Woody, was a plasterer. He came to the audition with plaster in his hair, And we had to fight the execs because they wanted, they wanted Tom Hardy to play Woody, and we were like, no, we're going to get these, which would have been a very different film if you think about it. And we just sort of thought, no, and you know what, we want, and Shane's brilliant at just spotting talent. So, we worked with these kids from Nottingham and we shot the film and thinking it'll be a little artist. And it went on, and it went on to win a BAFTA for Best British Film. We're up against Harry Potter, Bourne film, Atonement and something else, Control. And we just didn't think we were going to win it. We just thought there's no chance. Sylvester Stallone was the person, and we had a mental, crazy night. And also at the same time, the film did really well internationally. It did well in France, it did well in Scandinavia, it really went, like a lot of places that have got a kind of like a bit of British culture. Australia, it did well in America, in New York and places like that. So on the back of that, and the success of that, we thought, hang on a minute, we've actually made a film that is received well critically, but has actually sold 1 million DVDs. So our investors were happy, Film 4 were happy, the Optimum releasing, who became Studio Canal, who released the film, were really happy. So they basically said, right, we'll give you a deal. Then they came to Warp, and Film 4 and Studio Canal offered us a development deal, which, on the back of This Is England, which was on the back of Dead Man's Shoes, on the back of the short. And we took this development deal, and we sort of were like, okay, this is interesting. This is totally not like the business plan that's in my drawer. They wanted us to do another business plan to get this development money. So we got people in, spent about 3 months doing a pretty detailed business plan with good financials, and one thing I would say though, the one thing that we did always have a solid business team behind the creative team, because that's essential, especially with the way my industry works. Which is even now after COVID, cash flow is always a problem. It's like this, it's always like that. Even when you're on the back of a big success like Jamie, that was 3 years ago. And so, you only earn when you make a film. So cash flow is the issue. So you need a really good solid team, whether there's 3 of you or whether there's 20 of you. So on the back of this, and it was the day after, we had a steaming hangover, me and Shane. Actually, somebody had drawn a dick on my face late at night, thought it would be really funny. It was Paddy. He drew a dick there on my face, thought it'd be like hilarious in the bar at 3 a.m. And I went for a meeting with Film 4 in the morning for a first look deal, and I had this faint dick on the side of my head, which was really embarrassing. Quite apt. And anyway, so this is 2006. I went to this meeting. Tessa Ross, who was a brilliant film exec, gave this a development deal and said, and at the time a guy called Peter Carlton, and Peter's now at Park Hill over there, I've been working for 10 years, he was the first person that gave us the first bit of money for Dead Man's Shoes. He worked at East Midlands Screen Fund. He gave us the first bit of money. During Dead Man's Shoes, he went to work for Tessa, because Tessa at Film 4 really liked him, made her his film exec at Film 4. Then Peter was the exec on This Is England. And then me and Peter used to get the late train back he lives in Matlock. He was working in London, and we used to just see each other on that last train. This is when St Pancras was a shithole, and there was a pasty shop and a warm Stella and that kind of vibe. And we used to get on the train together and sort of put the wheels to right on the train back up north. And Peter had this idea of doing a low budget film slate, and really liked us. So then Peter became our lead exec and financed the next 7 films that we did via Film 4. And basically, this is a guy I used to see on the train, and this is why I'm sort of coming back to this Kismet thing, because again, I didn't have Peter Carlton in my business plan. And then this is and then that came, and then Peter, and then the next bit, which is so if you recognise that location, it's just around the corner, Campo Lane. Obviously it's the London Marathon. This is Four Lions. Has anyone seen Four Lions? Yeah. Okay. Another little bit of trivia. That's me, not Riz, in that. We had to shoot it on a Sunday to tie in with the Sheffield half marathon, and Riz was at a wedding. So I was short like Riz, put that costume on and ran around Sheffield for 6 hours and nearly had a heart attack. But anyway, coming back to Four Lions, What happened with Four Lions was really interesting, because if you think Kismet, I'd not planned to do this film Four Lions. Peter Carlton, who I met on a train, who funded Dead Man's Shoes and funded This Is England, funded Four Lions, and it was a risk. That was the longest I've ever taken to raise money for a film. Brilliant script from Chris Morris, Sam and Jesse, who did Sam and Jesse Armstrong writes Succession. He's an amazing writer. He's the creator of that. The funniest script, still the funniest script I've ever read. But it was not long after, some heightened terrorist activity. So I literally got laughed out of meetings. I went to New York to try and raise some money at the festival, and people thought they were on a candid camera type show. Because I'm there near the Twin Towers, that was ground zero, pitching a comedy about suicide bombers, which didn't go down very well. And went to Sundance, didn't get any money. Anyway, Peter from Film 4 believed in it, as did the people who distributed and This Is England and Dead Man's Shoes. Obviously Chris Morris directed it, who made our first short film, who introduced me to Paddy. And you see where this is going. There's kind of just these little connections everywhere that I didn't have in a business plan. So we made this film Four Lions, which again was a crazy sort of idea. And at the same time as Four Lions, in the process of doing that, Chris introduced me to this guy. He said, there's this guy, he's a comedian called Richard Ayoade. I think you two will get on. He wants to do some pop videos. We were doing pop videos at the time. We'd done quite a lot. Because of the music connections with What Records, we did a lot of pop videos. So Chris sent me this Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, this crazy Channel 4 sitcom, which Richard created. And I loved it, thought it was amazing. Richard came up to stay. He said, I want to make a film, but I want to do some pop videos first. So at the same time, the Arctic Monkeys had kind of were on this, the album was just about to come out. Arctic Monkeys' favourite film was Dead Man's Shoes. They wanted to do something quite clever with their first few videos. So Jeff, the manager, said, can I bring this band round? You've not heard of them, but I kind of have heard of them. They were doing that, the gigs had started to pick up a little bit. And so we started to do we did Scummy Man, which we shot at Park Hill, that Stephen Graham was in, which was, and we all met, again, this is Stephen met the Arctic Monkeys on the train. That last train that used to leave at, I think it was the one that didn't get stuck at Derby, 1027 train, that's the one. So much business on that train, I am not joking. Richard Hawley got on the train once, ended up, Shane then directed a video for Richard. Stephen met the Arctic Monkeys, he ended up being in Scummy Man and Fluorescent Adolescent. So Richard came up to my house, was living in Nether Green at the time, and met the Arctic Monkeys. And they got on, him and Alex really clicked, really clicked. And he went and did this, he showed them I remember we had a VHS player when we had the VHS, and he was showing them videos of the Sweeney and these crazy, and he went to make Fluorescent Adolescent, which is a video with Stephen in about these clowns. And then, at the same time, so this is the similar time of Four Lions, Richard wanted to make a film, and then we got him to make this Arctic Monkeys at the Apollo, which was shot, I think, about 2008, 2009. And then, like I say, Chris introduced me to Richard. Richard said he wanted a project. At the time, we just hired an intern in our London office. We had a London office then. An intern called Ali Gibbs. And his best friend, Joe Dunthorne, had written his first ever book called Submarine. And Submarine was this crazy thing based on Joe's life. And he'd never, I said, Joe, he was just out of college, just out of uni, sorry. So I read this book, the manuscript Submarine, on that last train back up to London, that last train. By the time I got to Leicester, I was like 100 pages in, I was like, we've got to do this film. Can you get in touch with your mate? Is it going to be published? He said, yes, he's got a publishing deal, it's very small. So I then said, look, I think it'd be great for Richard, sent it to Richard Ayoade, read Submarine, the book, said, I love it. So suddenly, Submarine was kind of going. Richard Ayoade directing, Submarine, the manuscript. Richard said he'd write it with Joe. And 2010, That's in Cardiff. Richard's directing his first feature film after doing these Arctic Monkeys videos. So I kind of like, and then it was our 10th anniversary. And we had to do this sort of, we did this event at Magna. I had to do a lot of, you know, like in business, you're always looking forward. You often never look at what you've done because you're like, oh God, next film, shit, I need to get some money in the company. And you never look back. And then somebody somebody asked me we did this book, a scrapbook for Warp 10. And we had to put the idea was to put this behind the scenes history of the company. And then we was doing it, you know, and as I put this book together, I was going, this is crazy story, because like, there's a business plan, 3 business plans now, and I don't think I've ever looked at them until we got the money that the business plan was there to achieve. But if you look at these connections in the first 10 years, it literally is a train, a pub, and a Sunday league football. So it blew, and I say that's why when I was asked to do this thing, and so Kismet, I mean, I can't even say what I learned from it is that you just have a feeling when you click with someone, and this business, for the film business, it's such a collaborative creative process, not just from the producer, director, writer, but from the DOP, from the actors, it is just literally everybody brings, even the fingerprints are all over the film. And I've looked back and I kind of found all these little connections, and we did this like Zen diagram map, which I couldn't find it. But we've just done this Zen diagram map to try and find to try and find the connections. And the connections are insane. The connections are absolutely crazy. And you realise that none of it was what I put in a business plan. None of it was what we strategically came up with. All of it was just about doing work that we believed in, really believed in, with talent that we believed in. And then if that went well and it was perceived, that talent, it's a bit like when you get somebody who could come and plaster your house. You know, if they're good, you recommend them to a friend. And this creative business is actually like that. And I think a lot of people think it's really like, I think we over-intellectualise our business sometimes and think it's really an amazing thing. And there's this strategic mastermind coming up with this great plan to take up a film company and and do these. But it's not. It's actually just getting on with people, doing a connection, believing in something. And you know, it's not easy. Like I say, 4 Lions was a nightmare. But weirdly, by having these connections of people that believe in, that helps you. I had times when we were trying to finance 4 Lions, when I just couldn't be able to get out of bed because I was like, oh God, I've had 100 people just like either laugh at me or tell me to fuck off. Literally, nobody believes in this film, but somehow by having a few people around you that believe in it will help you get out of bed that day, and then vice versa, the days when they're low and they're sort of doubting their creative talents, it does. So that was sort of like, that's the first 10 years of Warp. Connections, opportunity, trusting your gut, getting a great team of people behind you. And then cut to now, our last film was Jamie. And the reason I've kind of cut, in between that was the TV series This Is England, which we never planned to make telly. We never thought, this is pre the streaming boom that we've got now. This is like, really Channel 4 was the only really avenue for a Warp film. And we didn't really plan to make telly. You know, I was really into film. The TV world seemed like quite alien. But when we were going around Q&As in festivals with This Is England, people were asking, well, what happened to Lol, and what happened to Combo, and what happened to these other what did Woody, you know, and we're like, and because Shane based them on real people and they had a life post the end of This Is England, the film, we just sat together and went, maybe we could turn this into a TV series. And then very luckily, we were in Film 4 for a meeting about a feature film. The night before, This Is England, the film, had gone on their film channel and was the biggest ever audience that they'd ever had on the film channel, bigger than a lot of the Hollywood stuff. So we just went, me and Shane said, I just gave Shane this kind of, let's go, pretend we were going for a pee. I went, should we just pitch him the TV idea? And we went back and pitched him the TV idea, and it was away. No business plan, no plan, just literally couple of minutes of going, here's an opportunity. Shall we kind of pretend that we've got a writer and we know what we're doing in telly and da-da-da, and we did, and we got the TV series away. And like I say, some of it's a struggle. I mean, the last thing I did with Shane was called The Virtues for Channel 4. It's 10 years to get that made. We started that as a film. It was going to be this thing called, it was going to be a twisted nativity about Joseph and Mary, this guy who meets this prostitute on a boat over to Ireland, and they kind of forge this kind of platonic love relationship. He saves her. Tried to get it away as a film, but it was too dark. People didn't get it. 10 years later, we made it as a TV series. So the other thing I wanted to say in this this room full of people is it's all about timing as well. So sometimes you can have the best project, and Virtues was a great project. Then it was called Joseph and Mary. It was great, but it wasn't right to make it then. It was right to wait 10 years, wait for the TV industry to change, where you could get as much freedom. And that's the other thing, that the TV industry was very regimented. You now get as much freedom in film as if not more. Shane thought that story needed to tell in over 4 hours, couldn't be condensed to 90 minutes, so we made it as a TV series. And then cut to the last film we made, which is Jamie. And the reason I've got this, which is our biggest budget film to date, about £20 million. And the reason I sort of want to put this in is that this was really not a planned either. I never planned, I hate musicals. My kids, Greatest Showman, I've been to see it 4 times, and honestly the idea of producing a musical made me want to vomit. However, when we were filming Virtues, our people I knew at football and random people were saying, you've got to see this show, it's called Jamie, it's at the Crucible, it's amazing. I was like, I don't really like musicals. And then Barry Ryan, who worked for Warp, and Kat, who worked for Warp, had seen it, said it's so good, it's like very like, I think you really like it, it's kind of, it's a working class story, it's true, it's authentic, it's got a huge heart, which even weirdly, that's one of the things that we try and identify, even in our most violent projects that we've done, heart is a big thing. And I was really busy on Virtues, but I thought, it's the Crucible, I can't not go. So I got tickets to the last night, saw it and came out going, shit, we're going to make this musical. And this is before it went to the West End. So this is Saturday night, Monday rang up the Crucible, can you introduce me to the director, writer, creatives of Jamie, which the Crucible did. Jonathan Buttrell, the director, who came up with the original idea for Jamie after seeing the documentary, was born at Park Hill, and grew up there. His first 4 years of his life was in South Street. Our offices are at Park Hill. So he came that week to the office, sat under a This Is England poster, which he said, and we were thinking, how are we going to get this film? Because we knew a lot of people were after it. But he just sort of said, there's this kind of cosmic weird thing. I was sat where I was born, under a film that I've always really admired, talking to somebody who's never made a musical, but somehow it feels right. We shook hands and we made Jamie. Again, no business plan, nothing. So really, I think all I can say is it's our 20th anniversary next year, is that it is, there's no master plan, there is strategy sometimes, and there's a lot of great people that work with me, but it's totally random, it's totally Kismet. And there you go, thank you.